Hello everybody, this is Graeme, and today I'm going to be looking at a game called Illiterati. Now, the theme of this one takes place in a mythical land where you're going to be part of a league of librarians who are the guardians of truth and knowledge. And of course, there is a villainous group called the Illiterati, whose goal is to spread illiteracy. And they're going to do this by destroying all the books in your land. So, onto the gameplay. This is a cooperative speed word game. Each player is given a book with requirements, and in 3-minute rounds you're trying to make words that meet your book's requirements. Any leftover letters can be used in other words that may not necessarily meet any of the requirements, because any leftover letters go into the library, and the library can only store a few number of letters. Any letters over that limit are burned, and if too many letters are burned, the game is going to be over for you. And of course, at the end of each round, the Illiterati villains attack and potentially mess up all the work you've just done throughout the round. Kind of your typical, cooperative thing. Now, I'm going into this game usually enjoying word games, puzzles, but not always a huge fan of timed games. So I was interested to see which side would win out for me. So will this game be a treasure classic you keep forever? Or is it best just to return to the library at the first opportunity? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and we'll come back with my final thoughts on Illiterati. So here is Illiterati set up. All the letter tiles are placed into one bag, and the other bag is empty to start, and those are all the discards will go. Each player is then dealt one red book face up, and all the other book cards are placed to one side. Each player then draws 5 starting tiles from the bag, and place 3 letters face up in the middle of the table as what's called the library. Now I'm showing you the normal difficulty here. Some of the setup and the rules are different for the higher difficulties. Place the Illiterati villain cards face down next to the burn card. And finally, the timer is placed where all players can see it. Now this is a completely cooperative game. You'll all win or lose as a team. Your goal is to complete 2 books each, 1 red and 1 blue, then the group must complete the final chapter of one last book. If you do this, you win. You'll lose the game if there are too many letters that are burnt, or the Illiterati villain deck runs out. Now each round of the game will have 3 phases. The word building phase, where you're trying to create words with letters to try and accomplish the book's requirements. Then the bookbinding phase, where you burn excess letters and then turn in completed books. And finally you will draw an Illiterati villain card and resolve its effects. Now in the world building phase, each player will draw 7 letters from the bag. When ready, turn over the timer and you have 3 minutes to create words with the letters you drew. Now your goal is to survive the round. You do this by using all the words on the table to form words. You do not want any leftover letters that are not part of words at the end of the round, so you'll probably need to make words that are maybe not relevant to anybody's book requirements. In this 3-minute time, all players are creating words simultaneously. You can move letters and even entire words amongst the players. Anyone can store and take letters from the library. At the end of the round, each player can have a maximum of 8 words in front of them. When the 3 minutes is up, you first verify all the words that are created. All players must agree that the words are valid and properly spelled. Any unused letters, misspelled or invalid words, go to the library. Now if you exceed the library limit, and in this normal game I'm showing you the limit is 3 letters, then you must do the following. Flip all of the letters in the library over and randomly pick one of them to burn, and you place it on the burn tracker. This letter is permanently removed from the game, and if you fill up the burn tracker, the game is over. Then you flip all the tiles face up and keep up to the library limit and discard the rest. Finally, if any player has more than 8 words in front of them, they have to discard down to 8 words and burn 1 letter from those discarded letters. And again, whenever you are discarding tiles, they always go into the other bag from the bag you were drawing letters from. Next, you see if you can bind any books. If any letters were burned during this round, nobody may bind a book. Otherwise, you can bind a book if you met its requirements, and during the normal rounds, you're only concerned with the left side of the book, not the final chapter side. Now there is a handy player aid to tell you what all the symbols mean, but usually it will tell you how many letters you need, not in one word, but across all the words that are associated with that requirement, and usually some other restrictions. If you are able to bind your book, flip it over and take a book of the different color. Then return all the letters that were used back to the discard bag. If you've met the requirements for the game before the other players, you do not draw another book, but you can still draw letters and help out the other players. If all players have finished their required books, you move on to the final chapter, which I'll talk about in a bit. But anyway, once the players have had a chance to bind their books, the Illiterati attack phase happens. You turn over the top Illiterati card and resolve its effects. If the same character has already attacked, the attacks stack, and you trigger all the effects from the villain, from the card you just drew, to the oldest one and place the new card on top. Then a new round begins. Now again, once all players have finished their books, again in normal mode that would mean all players have bound 2 books each, you move into the final chapter. The round structure works the same, but all players are working towards the same card. As a group, decide if you want a red book or a blue book and draw one of those. During the subsequent rounds, each player must complete the final chapter side of this book as if it was their own book, and in order to win the game, all players must bind the final chapter on the same round. Even if one player is not able to do it, then no one can bind the book, and you must wait until the next round to try and bind it again. Now, if all players are able to bind the final chapter in the same round, then the players win. The players will lose if either the burn track is full or the Illiterati deck runs out. And that's how you play. Now let's get back to see what I thought about Illiterati. So, theme and components. The theme is definitely a little weird, but on the whimsical side. The idea that you're binding books to fend off evil villains is definitely unique. The actual gameplay, though, the theme really doesn't come through beyond the Illiterati attack cards or the book cards, but I'm glad it doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. So, I like the theme. It's well done through the illustrations and definitely the names of the books. You should definitely read them and read the little description across the bottom. They are well done and humorous. For the components, the version I showed in the overview was the deluxe version, so that's what I'm going to be talking about here. I really like the components. The letter tiles are nice and chunky and exactly what you want from this style of game. The books were nice and large and easy enough to read, and I did like that there were these little cheat sheets that all the players got because the iconography is definitely not the most clear. The bags were plenty big enough and very well made. The only gripe I have is the sand timer, and honestly with most games with sand timers I have the same gripe. The sand doesn't always go through. No big deal, use your phone for 3 minutes. It also means that no one has to be looking at this to see when your time is up. So overall, I was impressed with the components. Now on to the gameplay. This is a real-time cooperative word game. Some of those mechanisms are going to turn people off as soon as they hear them. I'm not honestly a big fan of real-time games, but it actually worked really well in this game to keep people moving. Now, I love word puzzles and do a lot of word puzzles outside of board gaming, so that piece was an easy sell for me. The cooperative nature of the game is definitely a little hectic, but I still thought it worked out reasonably well for the gameplay. I found if we all told each other, what words we needed before the round started, then it definitely helped when one person has finished the book and can help the other people. But there was still a lot of talking. Does anybody have a purple E I could have? Or can you use a Q? But the rounds were definitely hectic, and I know that's going to turn some people off on the game. I did find that the fact that you can give letters or entire words to the other players definitely a little weird, as it didn't feel like I was working on my book. It almost felt like all the letters and books were in a communal pool, and then we could all work together on the same books. I also found the game definitely worked best when I got a group of friends who were not necessarily gamers, but really enjoyed word puzzles. We finished each round early, that is before the 3 minutes was up, and were able to beat the game. Well, we beat it on normal mode. We then tried to up the difficulty. Didn't do as well, but we got pretty close. So I do like that there are different levels to the game. I do wish that there were more of these book cards. After a few games, we kind of seen all the books, and we realized, for my group anyway, which ones were easy and which ones were hard. But having the two different books with different goals, one being kind of a thematic, and one being more of a just how the words are structured, I did find that these ones were definitely, I found a bit easier, but it's going to be up to you which ones you find easier. Because the blue ones here, you kind of have really no frame of reference. It just says double consonants. Well, you're kind of starting from scratch to figure out what that is. The Illiterati villain cards do add something to the game. Sometimes they really mess you up your words. Maybe the person with the most words has to get rid of a word. They were annoying, but I kind of felt necessary for the game, or else it would be too easy. And I did like that the cards stack. As the game goes on, it becomes more and more difficult. So definitely more pressure to get the books done early so you don't have to face villains triggering, multiple times because you drew the same villain. So would I recommend this game? If you like word puzzles and enjoy being under pressure, then I would recommend this easily. I do recognize that that's probably a small subset of gamers, but it fit me and most of the people I played with it to a T. I like the art and the components of the game, recognizing that this is definitely the deluxe version of the game. I ended up liking the timer aspect of the game. Not the timer itself, but the pressure I was under was just right for me. I like that the two books were different and had different ways to approach the word making. I enjoyed the cooperative bit. I didn't feel that due to the time limit, there was never any time for an alpha gamer to kind of dictate what you should do. You just kind of had your own head down and working on your letters and words. On the con side though, I do wish that there were more books, and maybe the books were maybe split into difficulties. There are ways to make the game more difficult, but that generally involved just having to solve more books or having a smaller library. I would have loved to see books themselves put into different levels so that you could work your way up as you got better in the game. Or we're able to tailor it that if you're playing with a family, maybe have the younger kids work on easier ones. I also realized that the whole premise of the game, a speed word puzzle, is not going to appeal to everyone. That's not a con for me, but there are some people that I wouldn't even try to bring up this game to. So overall, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10 in the Dice Tower seal of approval. This one, I really enjoyed, but do worry about the longevity with the small set of book cards. That combined with the fact that the game is just not going to appeal to several of the people in my group, just because of the mechanisms, means that I take a few points off that final score. But if you love word puzzles or know people that do, this is definitely one to play with them. But that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.